Alright, so we have a really wild chapter here because we're continuing the battle between Okkotsu and Sukuna, and we're actually seeing Okkotsu's domain expansion, which is pretty incredible. But coming off of the previous chapter, we saw that Okkotsu had finally joined the battlefield to take on Sukuna along with Rika. But before we got into that fight, coming into this chapter, we're actually going into a small flashback of when Okkotsu had killed Kenjaku by cutting off his head, because that was something that we cut away from, unfortunately, where it ended with Kenjaku saying my will be inherited. But now we're seeing what happened after that. So his head starts like floating and he releases the cursed spirits within him, you know, in Geto's cursed spirit manipulation technique, which I guess is just a failsafe Thomos, or just something that happens as a result of the body of the user dying, maybe. I mean, I don't think that necessarily happened when Gojo killed Geto, you know, back in Volume 0, but it is something that Toji wondered about when he was fighting against Geto in Hidden Inventory Arc, which is why he was hesitant of killing him. But it's happening here, and there's a bunch of them coming out, but it's surprisingly taken care of very easily by Rika. It's almost like a non-issue at this point, and it makes me wonder like why Gege put so much emphasis on this, especially it being mentioned later on in this chapter, but it is what it is. But Kenjaku is like made this tree of like Resident Evil meat or something. I don't know what's going on here. This could be a cursed spirit that he's using to do this, but it's like holding up his head, and it also has like this flesh orb chamber for Tengen's cursed womb thing that he is. But at this point, Kenjaku makes the rule to the Kogane of the Culling game that Megumi Fushiguro, who is actually Sukuna in this instance, since he is inhabiting his body in the game, for some reason can't tell the difference, will hold the power to invoke the great merger between mankind and Tengen, which is like Kenjaku's big ultimate plan, using the Culling game as like a conduit to fuse the population of Japan with ascended Tengen in order to become like this big massive cursed spirit that's kind of like a new anomaly that in theory could even create a new form of cursed energy. Just something that creates a kind of chaos that not even Kenjaku can control, which is like what his goal was, like I said. And he made that rule so that, you know, of course, Sukuna can activate the merger now that he is dead. And he also says that the ritual of succession with Sukuna has already been finished beforehand, and then after that he can overwrite the parents that form the foundation of the merging ritual done through the Culling games. And it's like, that's kind of a rough translation, I'm not gonna lie, but it is what it is. I'm pretty sure he's just talking about the people that can activate this merger. But first, let's talk about the sponsor of this video, Factor. Also, if you're familiar with HelloFresh, which I've also used before and love, Factor is in partnership with them. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that'll help your weekly meal planning even more delicious. No prep, no mess meals, because Factor meals are 100% ready to heat and eat, so there's no prepping, cooking, or cleaning up needed. So I had the green pepper and beef casserole with Parmesan broccoli grits and green beans. This was so good and really filling as well. The green peppers go so well with the beef, and the cheese is just immaculate. I mean, you could just see it yourself, and the Parmesan broccoli grits and green beans pair with it in an unexpected way. You really can't go wrong with this one. I also tried the vegan mushroom marsala with onion risotto and roasted garlic green beans. I normally don't go for vegan options, but Factor always does me right with these. I mean, just look at this. It tastes even better than it looks, I promise you that. So if you're just having one of those days where you maybe want to go lighter, Factor's vegan meals are the perfect option for that. Factor also has these great wellness shots. I tried this spinach, kale, celery, lemon, and E3 Live wellness shot. Taking this on a fasted stomach really woke me up. It genuinely like made me feel great. So guys, head to factor75.com or click the link below and use my code Zhoniin50 to get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life. 2 free wellness shots from 3 available flavors for every order while you are an active subscriber. Thanks, guys. Because, like I said, he's using the culling game as a conduit to do that. Because the culling game barriers that are around the colonies in Japan all link up and eventually make like this straight line. And the straight line makes like this curtain that will pass through Japan, like enveloping everything. And that's how he made all of the people in Japan susceptible to being able to go through this merger in the first place. And I'm surprised that Gege hasn't brought this up again. He kind of just assumes the entire audience already knows what he's talking about when he has Kenjaku giving this exposition, but he's only really showed the example of that being done, I think, once. It was like way back in like chapter 145 or 146, somewhere around there, when we first got introduced to Tengen and Tengen explained what Kenjaku's plan was. But speaking of Tengen, like I said, he's been reduced to like this cursed womb that Kenjaku was like holding inside of this meat sack thing. And that's what he wound up sending to Sukuna in the previous chapter. And Sukuna like ate the Tengen cursed womb because I guess he just needs that so that he can have, you know, Japan merge with Tengen. And it's also interesting that they need to have this tangible aspect of Tengen, considering that Tengen said that he himself was more of an abstraction now since he didn't go through with the Star Plasma Vessel merger, you know, since Toji killed Riko. But I guess they need to have some kind of marker to represent Tengen in all of this, I suppose. Then Okkotsu stabs Kenjaku in the head, like right in the stitches where his brain is, which I assume means that Kenjaku is straight up dead now, which is pretty anticlimactic in my opinion. I mean, yeah, Kenjaku had to die, and Okkotsu did tell us that he was going to kill him, but I just thought more could have been done beforehand. I feel like there's a lot more that Kenjaku could have said, could have been involved in, and there is still a chance that we'll get like a Heian era flashback to when Kenjaku started all of this, like all of his machinations came to be, when he met Sukuna, when he met the other people in the culling game. But at this point, I'm really unsure of that. Like, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up that it's like guaranteed that that's going to happen, because I don't think it is. And even if it does happen, there's a chance it just might take up 2 pages. Like, Gege isn't like Oda with One Piece. Like, at least Oda will give us like an entire arc dedicated to a flashback. And even if not everything is substantial or there's a lot of bloat to that flashback, at least we're getting it fleshed out. And I just hope that Gege does that here, but, you know, like I said, it just doesn't seem like he even really cares to give us that much more backstory anymore. So I guess this is just the end of Kenjaku. Like, he's dead. This is how he gets taken out, and it is what it is. He does mention Takaba here, saying that he didn't have much fun in the last 1,000 years, but he was happy that he was able to play with him in the end. Takaba, you know, of course, referring to the fight, or quote-unquote fight that he had with Takaba before Okkotsu showed up and took his head off. But Takaba is still like laying down in like his funeral garb. I guess he's sleeping or something. Is this like a side effect of his curse technique? Because it's like, is Takaba going to come back into play, or is he just benched for the rest of this arc/series? Because it seems like he would be a pretty valuable player to put in against Sukuna at this point. I mean, if he can push Kenjaku to the point of where he thought that he was going to get killed, then he could surely do some shenanigans to Sukuna, right? While everyone just gangs up on him at the same time. But I digress. Coming back to Sukuna, we're coming to real time here where Okkotsu and Rika are facing him. And Okkotsu points out that Sukuna's cursed energy is coming back to normal because he sees that his reverse curse technique is coming back at a normal rate, you know, regenerating his hand, and that in theory he would be able to use his domain expansion sooner than later, because, you know, we have to remember that Sukuna has been just continuously fighting since the fight with Gojo. And the fight with Gojo was very taxing. Like, he had to do like 5 domain expansions, a crap ton of reverse curse technique, tons of brain damage, tons of cursed energy expenditure. It was a very exhausting task to take out Gojo. And then right after that, you know, he had to go into the Kashimo battle and then, you know, fighting everybody else, including Higuruma and Yuji and all them. But now he's regenerating. I don't know, he's getting his second or third wind at this point. But before we get into the fight here, Okkotsu's having like this inner monologue where he's like putting himself down, saying that he should have been there and that he should have did this, he should have did that, and that Higuruma's taken out because of him, and that Kenjaku's plan is succeeding because of him. It's like, it's really interesting how Okkotsu is still not as confident as you think he would be, especially in himself. And he puts a lot of the blame on himself as well. I mean, I guess this could be Gege's commentary on the trauma that Okkotsu suffered as a child, you know, with Rika and all that stuff. And, you know, going forward into him joining Jujutsu High and how the cursed spirit Rika caused a lot of issues for him as well. But he starts to fight Sukuna here with the sword, and Sukuna just grabs it by the blade because apparently Sukuna can manipulate his cleave and dismantle to such a small degree where he can just have the blades envelop his fingers so that he can grab Okkotsu's blade without actually touching it. Then he like pulls it out of Okkotsu's hand and just back fists Rika in the face, but winds up getting punched in his mouth stomach. And Gege emphasizes that the mouth stomach is getting punched here, but nothing really comes of it. I really want to see what Sukuna is going to be able to do with that thing. I mean, it's implied that he kind of just has it so that he has an extra mouth to do incantations and stuff, but I'm pretty sure he's like eating people with it too. Or eating something. Probably like human flesh or even cursed spirits possibly. But after another hand-to-hand sequence here between the three of them, Okkotsu goes into another self-defeatist monologue here. And he's like, you know, everything is happening because of my fault. And that's why I'll end everything here. And he activates his domain expansion. And we see an emphasis on the Rika ring that he has, which is interestingly on his middle finger now. It's usually on his ring finger. I think Gege purposely is showing us this for some reason. Maybe, I don't know, it signifies his mental state, or maybe it's how his curse technique can be manipulated somehow. But the domain expansion of Okkotsu is called True Love. That is not the final translation here. It's probably going to have a different name to it, but it has something to do with love. We do see like the Japanese knots around it, which are used for like weddings or funerals. And we also see like these pillars coming out of the ground. They're all like broken, and there's tons of katanas everywhere. It's pretty cool. And I'm really glad that we're finally getting to see it because, you know, as we know, it was teased way back at the start of the culling game in Sendai Colony when Okkotsu was taking on Ryu, Uro at the same time, and they all did a triple domain expansion, but Kuro Urushi, the cursed spirit, came in and broke it from the outside because a merger of 3 domains was so unstable. But now we're getting to see it, and I guess what its ability is aside from it just having a sure hit effect, which we don't necessarily know what it is. I guess it just messes you up. It just hits you with one of his curse techniques or something. Aside from just the, you know, like I said, sure hit, Okkotsu can grab one of these katanas, which I guess there is an infinite amount of them, and then the katana will take the place of a technique which he has copied many of, because when he activates the domain expansion, Sukuna activates Hollow Wicker Basket, which is like the old school version of simple domain. It just protects you from the sure hit of a domain, but it doesn't shut down like the curse technique effect of it. And because of this, Okkotsu grabs one of the katanas, and it represents Thin Icebreaker, which is the technique that Uro has with her sky manipulation ability. Like, she can crack the surface of space, you know, like you would ice, and it creates like this big impact. And Okkotsu hits Sukuna with it, but he blocks it with his like top forearm, still his bottom hands holding together, activating the wicker basket. So yeah, this is a pretty incredible domain, and I guess this is what we expected his domain would be. Like, he could just use all of his techniques at once, which it essentially is, I guess, but he kind of has to do it one at a time, I suppose, grabbing the katanas, you know what I mean? But after that exchange, we get an inner monologue from Sukuna, and he's like, oh, I see now. This is the next plan that these guys cook. And he's remembering from Megumi's memories, you know, since we found out that when a reincarnated sorcerer takes over a person's body, they assimilate their memories. So now he has knowledge of Okkotsu, and he calls him the spirit-possessing kid. And I guess this means that he was referring to Okkotsu in the previous chapter when he said that the spirit-possession kid was the main dish. So he's assuming that Okkotsu is going to be his final toughest battle here. And then he also says that his curse technique is copy. And I guess that might be the official name for Okkotsu's technique at this point, and calling a copy isn't really doing it justice, because yes, Okkotsu can copy others' curse techniques. Not like a facsimile of it, but he can copy the ability and use it in his own manner, but it more or less is taking the ability, if that makes sense. It's not like a 100% recreation, like I said, but aside from that, Rika the Shikigami is also his curse technique, and her external hard drive like ability where she can hold most of Okkotsu's like incredible cursed energy, but also hold all of the techniques as well, and being like a Pokemon for him to fight. It's like an incredible curse technique. So many layers to it. And then going further, Sukuna like explains how he thinks the domain expansion works, and how Okkotsu is like forcing him to use Hollow Wicker Basket to protect him from the sure hit attacks, but also preventing the use of half his arms and mouths. And then also talking about attacking him with the unlimited cursed copy techniques, which I think he's referring to grabbing the katanas in the ground here, and that it can only be activated in the domain, which totally makes sense. Going further, he says the brat strikes that grabs the soul, tear apart the bodies of myself and Megumi Fushiguro. So Yuji is in the domain too, and he looks angry as usual. And this is confirming what Yuji's new ability is, or one of his new abilities, and that he can like grab your soul with his strikes somehow. We actually saw him do this when he first started fighting Sukuna after he had killed Kashimo. Like, he started punching Sukuna, and Sukuna like started to vibrate. He was like, whoa, what's this? And it was actually Yuji targeting his soul with his strikes. So it's like, how does Yuji know this? Well, I mean, assume it's from the soul notebook that Tsukumo gave to Choso before she died against Kenjaku. Conveniently, of course, that kind of just came out of the blue. Just like an easy way for Gege to just pass this on to Yuji. And then Choso gave it to Yuji, and we just assume, yeah, he studied the crap out of it during that 1 month time skip before Gojo had fought Sukuna. And going back to what I was talking about in the beginning about how we're not going to probably see a Heian-era flashback or something, we're probably not going to see a flashback to what happened during that 1 month skip, which I think Gege probably should have gave us like 10 chapters or so dedicated to that time skip, or not even 10, maybe 5 at least, just something to give all of those characters their much needed development that they didn't get, just like as a character, but also on the power scale. This all just seems rushed to me. Again, I digress. This is Yuji's, I guess, ability, you could say, for now. We still don't know why he has, like, curse-like arms, what's going on with that. We still don't know how he's able to use blood manipulation, because a couple chapters back, there was a piercing blood fired at Sukuna, and it's implied that it was Yuji that was doing it. Now, Yuji is like the half brother of Choso, kind of, or quarter brother. So it is possible that maybe he inherited that from Kenjaku somehow, since Kenjaku was in the old Noritoshi Kamo's body, who had the blood manipulation technique. And we saw that Kenjaku can keep, techniques in his brain, I guess, because he still had Yuji's mother's gravity technique, or the woman that he possessed as he gave birth to Yuji. So maybe he inherited it after the fact or something, because Yuji didn't obviously always have a curse technique. Gojo straight up tells him in the beginning of the series that he doesn't have one, and Judge Man didn't confiscate anything from him when he fell victim to it against Higuruma at the beginning of the Culling game. It just took his cursed energy. So it's possible that through this soul manipulation or something, Yuji has developed a way to use curse techniques. And there's also what Gojo told Yuji at the beginning of the series, that he will eventually inherit Sukuna's curse techniques from Sukuna being in it for so long, and that still hasn't come to fruition. But this is how Yuji is going to save Megumi here. He's going to punch Sukuna until he can grab, I guess, Sukuna's soul and separate it from Megumi. Now, once he does that, I don't know what's going to happen to Sukuna. I don't know if Sukuna can get another tangible form at that point, or if that's just straight up how he gets defeated. But we will see what happens here, because I don't think Sukuna is going to be defeated in the domain here. Yes, Yuji and Okkotsu are pretty formidable, but it is Sukuna, and he is regaining his normal amount of cursed energy. So really looking forward to seeing what happens here. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. Also, please follow me on TikTok or or Instagram. I'm trying to get to 10,000 followers on either platform. I upload reels and TikToks on there, so whatever platform you prefer more, please follow me on them. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll have the links to those in my link tree in the description. And yeah, have a great day, guys. I'll see you in the next one.